I want to start with numbers first. Mahalo for joining Hawaiian Health Summit. And I want to start with numbers first, and then I'm going to introduce these amazing speakers. First, who am I, right? Who is this crazy person? I'm Michelle Melendez. I have been a fitness, wellness, and weight loss specialist since 1996 for over 20 years. I wrote a best-selling and four-time award-winning book called End Dieting Hell. And when this first started, I really wanted to know more, especially when you understand the numbers here on Hawaii. In the year 2015 to 2016, the flu season, the year of the flu season, there were 1,470 people in the state of Hawaii that had flu-like symptoms. 478, I call it transitioning out of their body, they died. 478 people died of the flu in 2015, 2016. The very next year, 2016, 2017, there was 1,856 people in the state of Hawaii with flu-like symptoms, and 526 transitioned out of their body from the flu. Last year, 2019, 336 deaths from the flu. And this year, for COVID, we have approximately 8,139 cases, but 62 people have transitioned out of their body. That makes this the lowest flu season ever in recorded history of deaths. So we have mandates, we have masks, we have closed businesses, we have some businesses will never open again. And we have to ask why. When our way of life is changing forever with all of these mandates, we have to ask why. And let me go ahead and Wednesday, and then this other part as well, Hawaii Big Island, zero people have transitioned out of their bodies, 0 deaths on the Big Island, 100% recovery on the Big Island. We have 99.3% in the state, 100% recovery on the Big Island. South Dakota, who did not lock down, 99% recovery. Arkansas, another state that didn't mandate people to stay at home, 99% recovery. So we have to ask these questions, and that's what these doctors and experts are here for. So let me go ahead and introduce them. We have Dr. Mary Ruat. She is a research scientist. She received her BS in biochemistry in 1970 and her PhD in biophysics in 1974 from Michigan State University. She subsequently joined the Department of Surgery at St. Louis University as a senior research scientist. And check this out, Dr. Ruat has been involved in developing new therapies for a variety of diseases, including liver cirrhosis and AIDS. Peggy Hall is the founder of thehealthyamerican.org. She is the former director of teacher education at the University of California, Irvine Extension, and was the health and wellness expert for the ABC Radio Network and the Emmy-nominated TV show America Now. So these ladies know their stuff. And I'm so excited to have you both here on the Big Island of Hawaii. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my very first question with this astronomical numbers in testing is the test. So Dr. Mary and then Peggy, please, can you let us know? We have 8,000 cases with 62 people who've transitioned. Talk about the test.
Well, there's a lot of tests out there, and they don't all measure. Okay.
No, I can't hear you. We just were able to hear you. This is all the way. Okay, hold on. Okay, that's me. Sorry. Oh, that's all the way. Okay, hold on a second. This is going to work.
I'll speak up.
Okay, Peggy. Okay. Oh, Peggy's slapping. I can hear Peggy, but I can't hear.
You can't hear me?
Oh my goodness.
At all?
What is going on? All right, we're gonna do this a new way. Hold on 1 second. I am gonna do this. What I'm going to do is cancel the Bluetooth on the computer and put the Bluetooth on another device. So hold on 1 second while I disconnect.
Bluetooth disconnected.
Party room.
Bluetooth connected.
Okay. Let's try this again. Welcome. Starting. This is going to work.
Michelle,
It's connected right now.
the chat is saying that everybody can hear us online.
Ooh.
Okay, somebody said to turn on.
Okay, I see you, Ray.
There we go.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Come on, come on, come on. Mary, can you talk again?
Sure. I'll say something, and maybe the people who are putting in the chat box can say if they're hearing me.
Okay, I can hear you now.
You can? Okay.
Let me.
Okay. So would you like me to answer your question or try to?
Can you guys hear her from here? Go ahead. Let's see.
I can speak up. So there are many tests, and they're not all the same. Some measure fragments of the virus, usually with a nasal swab, and they have to do what's called amplification to look at it because it's too small to detect. So they kind of think about it as growing it up in the test tube and then measuring it. And of course, your nose is supposed to keep things out. So if you see it in your nose, it doesn't necessarily mean you're infected. But if you do an antibody test, which is usually a blood test, then if you get a positive result there, then you have been infected at one time or another, or could still be infected. And we don't know how long those antibodies last. It appears, from what I am aware of right now, is that the more severe your COVID case is, the more antibodies you have. And there are studies going on right now transferring these antibodies from someone who has already had COVID to the next person, hopefully to treat them and help them recover better. But not everyone has the same antibody response, so you can't count on being immune to it like you might if you had gotten the measles or the mumps naturally, as many of us older people did.
Awesome. Wow.
And I've had friends get the tests, and there's a disclaimer that says, just because you have a negative test does not mean that you are free from COVID.
Okay. Thank you so much. And Peggy, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, it's very interesting because what they're doing here in California is they are doing that nasal swab. And the stories that I've heard and the videos that I've seen, this is so invasive. And the question that I have in my mind, if we have to wear masks inside Costco and just walking from a sidewalk to a table at a restaurant, they won't let you walk from the sidewalk to the table without a mask. But once you get to the table, you take off the mask. So therefore, we're being told that this virus is so highly contagious that a healthy American like me, who is not even sick, I could breathe on someone 6 feet away and they instantly are going not only be infected, because I would also like to hear from you, doctor, about the difference between a case and an infection and actually being sick. Because you can have these viruses in your body, it doesn't mean you're sick. But here's my question. If this virus is so contagious that just breathing on someone is going to cause them great harm, why don't they run a test where you breathe on the swab? You can just do this. And well, I want a serious answer to that question from those who do this. I want to hear from LabCorp and I want to hear from Quest Diagnostics, because if they are telling us that in order to get the virus, and as you said, it can be in your nose, it doesn't mean you're infected. The nose is the trap. We hope you see it there. That means it's not in your body. And so my favorite thing to do at the Healthy American is to reveal the hypocrisy. And there's a good example of it.
Well, there's been studies published that show that just because a family member is infected doesn't mean the other family members will get it. The rate of infection of families who have a lot of exposure is about 10 to 40%. Now, when I say infected, of course, let's define terms here. I'm not saying that they necessarily have had a test. I think maybe it would probably be more accurate to say they're asymptomatic, because you can carry it asymptomatically. In fact, children and young people generally don't have severe symptoms. And part of this is because as we get older, we have more of what we call silent inflammation. And that silent inflammation is what is, I guess I could say, the virus builds upon that. So if you start out with a lot of inflammation, the virus is going to amplify that inflammation and you're going to get very sick. So as we get older, we generally have more inflammation. You can kind of measure it with things like homocysteine, and we know we can bring those numbers down with things like folic acid and B12. So, you know, it's actually pretty complicated. And so I just want to let listeners know that, because I'm telling you to the best of my understanding, but understanding is still evolving, because we really don't know as much as we should. And part of the reason, just because I know this group a little bit, part of the reason is because the CDC and the FDA made us go for 6 weeks without any tests at all, because the FDA said the only test you can use is the CDC's, and the CDC's didn't work. So, you know, that gives you an idea of how our government is not protecting us in this, because if you can be tested and you know you're positive, well, then you can take some precautions to help not infect other people. And of course, you can start getting what I'd call more natural treatments or over-the-counter treatments that actually have been shown to have some efficacy on your own. And of course, your best protection is to be healthy.
I love that. I love that. Your best protection is to be healthy. Yes, no doubt. So let's talk about that. What about masks? Like the people wear the masks, and especially the ones like in their car by themselves. Well, you go ahead and let us know what you think about the mask, because like every time I'm talking with somebody, they're pulling on them, pulling them down, and What do you guys think about the masks?
Yeah. Do you want to answer, Peggy, or shall I?
Why don't you lead with the science and then I'll talk about the law?
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yes.
I know less about the law and more about the science. Okay, so no mask is 100% protective. So, you know, what you're really doing mostly is if you are infected, you are protecting people by wearing the mask. It will contain some of your sneeze, some of the virus, but nothing's perfect. I mean, none of our currently available masks are going to be 100%. And so there's a bunch of studies out there, some of which show very little protection with masks and some that show significant protection, but not 100%. So, and there's a downside to wearing a mask. The downside is, of course, you have carbon dioxide buildup in your mask. And that means you have less oxygen. Recognizing that this virus, what it does is that inhibits your ability to process oxygen. So that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all. So that's the science, to the best of my knowledge. And Peggy, why don't you tell us about the legalities?
Well, the sad thing is that even if the masks worked, even if you had a magic mask that would allow you to live, disease-free, to be 120 years old, there is no authority for any governor, including the governors in Hawaii, no authority for the governor of my state, California, no authority for the president of the United States, no authority for your city mayor. There is zero authority for any individual to require you to undergo an individual health behavior. And Michelle, well, we all are interested in the health field. And Michelle, I really applaud you for the statistics that you led with, because it's very important that people understand that the way that this state of emergency in every state was declared was because we were told that the numbers were going to constitute an epidemic. An epidemic of a disease is an outbreak that far exceeds normal or anticipated cases. Further, an epidemic and a state of emergency is called when the resources of the state are going to be overwhelmed. Now, because the hospitals are empty, because medical personnel are being laid off, because there are plenty of masks and ventilators and everything else that's going around, and because the numbers themselves do not constitute an emergency, there are no legal grounds for any of these health orders. And I know the governors have called upon their health departments, because remember, a governor cannot tell you to do anything. The governor can only direct the agencies and departments in the executive branch. So in the executive branch, you have the Department of Motor Vehicles. We know how well that's run. You have the Department of Fish and Game. You have the Department of Parks and Recreation. You have the Department of Health and Human Services. And they might be called something slightly different in Hawaii, but I think you understand what the governor can do. So when the governor says, I declare a state of emergency, he is directing the agencies and the departments and those department heads. So there's a head of Health and Human Services, there's a head of Health Services, and the health officer is the only individual that has the legal authority to declare an order. And an order is a type of law, but that order is also under regulation. It has to be limited in duration and limited in scope. And the reason I'm going into all these details, because this is the linchpin on which our lives have been turned upside down. And the reason why I want to go back and say that even if a mask does contain the droplets, and even if you could live to be 120 years old to wear a mask, I'll tell you what, you could live to be 120 if you eat well, you don't smoke, you go to bed, you have fun, you stay connected, you have social interaction. But nonetheless, no individual, in fact, no law can actually compel you to undertake any individual health behavior. That would be like the state of Hawaii passing a law that says you have to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, and you can only eat 1,500 calories a day, and you must have your 30 minutes of exercise. Now, those might be excellent ideas, and Michelle, you probably speak on that, and I would recommend those things, but it cannot be compelled by law. The fact that people are complying is far more troubling to me than any tyrant trying to impose totalitarianism, a dictatorship, communism, whatever name you want to give it. The nature of power is to oppress. All right, we have 2,000 years more of history, 5,000 years of history that will show us that the nature of power is to oppress another individual, which is why we have laws. The whole point of our Constitution, the whole point of our government is to protect us from those powers oppressing us. It is not to give the power to those to oppress us. And that's why I want to speak very, very strongly about the importance of overseeing the public servants and to breathe down their neck and to put them on notice. And as we speak a little bit later in this program, I would like to give some practical remedies about what to do to actually cut off or at least put up road signs. Instead of those road signs that say wash your hands, we're going to put up road signs that say, we are on to you. You are committing fraud. Fraud is a felony. A felony carries a prison sentence. And I hope you look good in the color orange.
Well, it's actually worse than that, though. You know, these restrictions are killing people, and it's starting to be measured. You know, there's the studies usually say average 6 years of the past deaths in the U.S. So of course, they do it on a per capita basis, and then so they say, okay, so this year we should have had X numbers of deaths, and you know, really, the whole COVID thing can only account for about somewhere between 50 and 65% of the excess deaths so far. Now, what that means is people are dying from something else that they wouldn't have ordinarily died from. And what it is a lot of them are dying from heart attacks because they're not going to the hospital. They're afraid of COVID. So instead of getting medical attention right away, they aren't. So there's about a third more people dying at home with heart attacks than they otherwise would. Cancer treatments are being delayed, and because the economy is being tanked, there are going to be a lot more people who commit suicide and have other really serious medical problems because of losing their jobs, not being able to support their families, and what that means is some of them won't have medical insurance for the future things because they don't have the money to buy it or whatever. You know, they won't have the money to buy organic instead of non-organic. They won't have the money to get vitamins instead of, you know, they have to go without. And so these things are already starting to be measured. And I believe that if this goes on much longer, the number of deaths that happen because of the restrictions are not only going to equal, but could exceed numbers that were hopefully saved by this. And that's partly because as we open up, we have more cases, but we're measuring more. Remember, we didn't measure anything the first 6 weeks, right? So now we're testing people who are asymptomatic in many cases, and that's fine. But while the number of cases are actually, at least in the US, exceeding the peak that we had a few months ago, the number of deaths are not. They are down. So, you know, this is this whole business of the second peak, the second wave. Yes, I mean, if you don't count the fact that we couldn't test before, but we're not getting the deaths, you know, so that we've flattened the curve as far as the deaths go. And just one other point that you all might find interesting and might have an interpretation for. 42% of the deaths in the US have been in 3 states, New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, which all 42% of the deaths. 42%, yeah. And so that kind of suggests there's some geographical thing in play here that we, you know, that suggests some kind of contamination, susceptibility, something. And so that's, you know, I throw that out because somebody's going to run into an explanation. I sure hope they'll let me hear it.
And I just want to add, what blows my mind is we have 14-day quarantines. Like at the very beginning of this whole, when they started back in March and April, we had tens of thousands of people coming to the islands, and the cases there wasn't very many testing, and now we have 14-day quarantines that people will have to do, and our cases are astronomical, 8,000, and it keeps growing. I'm like, we have 14-day quarantines. It's like, what's going on here? It's so mind-blowing. And Peggy, you got your entire county off of masks. How did you do that?
Because we called their bluff. For many, many weeks, we focused on the science. And when I say we, it's very important to let these public servants know that they're on notice. And I literally mean on notice, where you send them a written notice. And I have that at thehealthyamerican.org. In fact, I'm adding to it. So please get on the email list. I will email you. I am working with legal team and paralegals, and we're drawing up these documents. And I want to, before I answer that, Michelle, it's really important because yes, we did get rid of, I don't even like to use the word mandate, but we got rid of the mask requirement and they rolled it back to a mask recommendation. Now, the reason they did that is because they knew that we were there looking at their every move. Here's my challenge to you guys in Hawaii, and it's not that hard to find out. You're going to do a search and look to see what your local health emergency laws are. And in California, the health officer can call an emergency and can issue an order, which they did, but that order can only stand for 7 days. And after 7 days, it has to be voted on and approved by the county board of supervisors. It may be called something different. I don't know if in Hawaii if it's called a county commissioner or what have you. And it might even be a city officer, but we have county health officers. They never vote, and they're supposed to vote on it every 30 days to extend it. They never voted on it. This order was on the books unlawfully. No individual can make a law. They can make an emergency law. So imagine you guys have a hurricane coming and the health officer can say, everybody must evacuate this neighborhood immediately. There's no time to go to a court and to get a court order to make everybody evacuate. Now, some people will stay at home and they might be fined from the county sheriff. That happens. But those orders are intended to last for only like 48 hours. And then those orders have to be ratified or approved by the board of supervisors or even by the state legislature. I did some digging and I found out that those orders were never approved. And when I told that county board that I knew what was going on, and I called the county attorney and I said, you better get this on the very next agenda because we can see the fraud that you're doing. And the reason they're doing it, friends, is for money. The reason there's a state of emergency called in Hawaii and in California and across the entire country, it's all about money and control. This is really interesting to me. When people misrepresent the facts in order to gain, like to gain money or power, that's called fraud. And fraud is a felony. And a felony carries a prison sentence. And I gave this exact speech. I testified in front of our board of supervisors for 60 seconds. I spoke that. Now, I can't say if it was a coincidence or what have you, but the very next day they had a press conference and told us that the masks were no longer. Now, they didn't get rid of the state of the local emergency. In fact, they voted to extend it. Some might say, well, you lost. They extended it. Well, actually, it was a gain because now we have them on record committing fraud. Yeah. And when that goes, and the remedies are, you can go to what I would recommend you do is you go, and again, it all depends on how corrupt your state is. Okay. I love Hawaii. I've been to Hawaii 20 or 30 times, right? California, Hawaii, it's like our destination. I can tell you that California is very corrupt. But if you have an upstanding, non-corrupt public official in the state office called the state auditor, the job of the auditor is to investigate these public servants. And these public servants need to be investigated for the money. They need to be investigated for, they received this money under fraudulent means. Michelle, you just told me there's no epidemic. People aren't dying. No. In fact, they're making people stay at home for 2 weeks. How can the case numbers be going up? How can the case numbers be going up if we're all wearing masks? That needs to be investigated not only by the state auditor, it needs to be investigated on each island by your civil grand jury. Now, this is what we have in California. I'm assuming you have it in Hawaii. A civil grand jury, not a criminal, it might go to the criminal grand jury. The civil grand jury exists to investigate wrongdoing by the public officials. Our country is the only country in the world that we, the people, are above the public officials, the public servants. We are supposed to be breathing down their neck, and we haven't been doing it. We breathe down their neck, and I will be sharing the actual complaints that I've been compiling from other states. You can fill in the blank, you can change the numbers, but this is the actual practical steps, because we can complain all day about how unfair this is, and I don't want to wear a mask, and nobody's dying. That's fine, but what are we going to do about it? Yeah, so this is what you're going to do about it. And I can also tell you about shopping and going to the doctor and all that other stuff. but it all depends on living in a lawful society. And unfortunately, in California, actually, fortunately, we're having lawsuits go forth, and we're getting some positive results. But even the results are not as important as the fact that you're taking action. You have to take action again and again and again and again, and let these public officials know you are never going to back down. It is going to take sacrifice. There will be casualties, actually. There will be casualties, meaning, as you've said, transitioning out of this earthly life for those who are willing to put their life on the line. And as I have said, along with some of my healthy Americans, I am marching this all the way to heaven. Personally, I'm never going to stop, because to me, I am not going to live in a tyrannical communist culture. I'm not going to do it. And so I'm willing to make those sacrifices. Not everybody is, and I empathize with those who are not in a position. You may be a single mom who has to keep your job. You may be a young father who has got to work in a warehouse and wear the mask, and you can't stand up against your boss. I'm fighting for you. So not everyone can toe the line, and that's okay. Just I want everyone to know that I've got your back, and what you're able to do, you've got to do it again and again and again and again.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I'm with you all the way. We're going to the end, because the alternative just isn't worth living. And let's talk about the money, because it blows my mind that it is okay for hospitals to get money to name something COVID versus something else. How is that possible? How is that legal? And I don't, Peggy or Dr. Mary. Yeah.
I don't think it is legal, exactly. I mean, I think you're talking about the fact that if the doctors put COVID on the death certificate, the hospitals get, I think it was $13,000. And if they put them on a ventilator, which we know is not a good way to go, unless there's absolutely no other choice, they get $39,000. And there have been many doctors who have come out courageously, because a lot of them have actually lost their jobs by coming out and saying, no, we are not treating them with ventilators anymore. This is not a good idea. Also, things like hydroxychloroquine, which actually can work if you give it at the right dose at the right time, especially with zinc or erythromycin, or some people have been giving it with magnesium too. These things have been very successful, and some of these doctors are reporting 80 to 90%, even up to 99% survival of their patients when used properly. And there's many things, really. I just like to get this in, because I think it's important for people to know that there are things you can do to help protect yourself against this. One of them is keep your vitamin D levels up. What they have shown is that the people who are dying or are most negatively affected by this disease have low vitamin D levels. So, you can supplement with vitamin D, and the numbers that you want are somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 60 nanograms per mil, or depending on if your test measures it in nanomoles, you want 100 to 150 nanomoles per liter. So if you want to target those numbers, probably only about 20% of people normally have those kind of numbers. So you probably need to supplement. The other thing is melatonin interferes with the binding of the virus to the ACE2 receptor. So melatonin is something, it's a natural hormone in your body. You can take it at night. Many of you will sleep better. And, it has a pretty low side effect profile. So, people have taken lots of it. I mean, my doctor has said they're taking up to, many times more than, normally you get 1 milligram or 3 milligrams, and some people are taking up to 60 milligrams. So I think, obviously it seems like there's two types of people who can take a lot, and people for just a little does the trick. So just be aware of that. And also, there's women seem to be more protected against this. It's probably their hormone balance. And they've found that men with male pattern baldness tend to be more susceptible, probably because of the testosterone and the way it's metabolized to get you the bald head. And of course, if you are older, Your homocysteine levels are probably going to be higher. Your silent inflammation is higher. You can control that with folic acid, B12, and other. They've been also giving like dexamethasone. It's a very common steroid. It's anti-inflammatory. It's been very successfully used, and many of the very, very sick COVID patients have basically a big coagulant reaction. So their blood's clotting inside of them. Well, anticoagulants at that stage in the game have been used successfully. So, you know, there are a lot of things. Oh, one more thing I just wanted to mention. Something that has, you know, similar properties, not perfectly aligned, but similar properties to dexamethasone, which you can get over the counter, by the way, is the budesonide. Budesonide comes in a spray. You put it in your nose. It dilates your lung blood vessels. Let's say. I'm trying to not be too technical here. So what it does is it helps you breathe, right? Because these patients are having trouble getting enough oxygen, which is why if if you're able to get an oxygen cylinder and use an oxygen mask, that would help you. Obviously, you have to have your doctor give you that, but doctors are now doing that instead of putting you on a ventilator, which you want to avoid if you can. So also IV vitamin C is been tried against the whole cytokine storm issue, which is just basically, think of it as like this. You have inflammation. Now you have COVID, you get more inflammation, and your body just freaks out. So it's too much. So you can help control that. And I'm sure we will find there are other natural treatments. And of course, as we get older, as I said, our homocysteine goes up, our nitric oxide goes down, which is something you can actually measure with a saliva stick that you can get on Amazon. And you can take certain types of amino acids for that. Arginine, for example, it can sometimes up your level. So I just want to throw that all out there because I want people to be aware that you're not helpless and there's things you can do to prevent it. And if you get it, there's things you can do even before you get to the doctor to help yourself.
So one thing is keeping the body healthy is basically what you're saying. The vitamin D levels, a lot of us, most people are low in vitamin D. I actually use a vitamin D3 spray. So vitamin D, zinc, vitamin C, of course. And do you have a list, by chance, Dr. Mary, of the things you just mentioned that people can grab? And if not, I'll make it myself and send it to people.
I had a hard time hearing that last part, Michelle.
Do you have a list of the things that you've mentioned?
I can send you one, and then you can give it to your listeners. Anybody who's signed into the show can get it.
Okay, great. And one more thing I want to talk about, and this is Dr. Jack, by the way. He's a local doctor, 30 years here on the Big Island, and we'll be asking him a quick question in a moment. But one thing I want to get people to understand is about hand sanitizers and understanding the body, because hand sanitizers are actually, they kill bacteria when people don't understand that their body is mostly, they have more bacteria than they do the cells of their body. So can one of you please speak with that? Because when I go into the store, I actually bring a natural lavender hand sanitizer because they literally won't let me talk to them unless I sanitize my hand in front of them. And I'm not going to put that poison on my hand because it's literally poison. So I don't know which one of you, Dr. Jack, Dr. Mary, Peggy.
I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard time hearing you. I know you were talking about hand sanitizers.
Yeah.
Did you want me to comment on that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, of course, if you can avoid hand, it's a toss-up. Your hands actually have their own microbiome, so you kind of destroy it when you use hand sanitizer. On the other hand, I have, when I've gone out on occasion and put my hand on something, I just get this yucky feeling, like maybe this isn't such a good thing. That's when I pull out my hand sanitizer. But there are products that you can use on your hands, and I think you mentioned lavender, so let me hit that. So I use a product called Thieves by Young Living. It's a combination of cloves and some other oils that supposedly is a recipe that the grave robbers used back during bubonic plague.
Oh.
And of course, they didn't want to get, they wanted all the good stuff, but they didn't want to get sick, right? So they used this, supposedly. This is the lore. Anyhow, I started using it. You can use it on your hands. You can, sniff it. And what I do is I use it on planes because that's where I seem to pick up, germs. So, and if I feel like I'm coming down with something, I have the littlest twinge, I use the lozenges. There's these lozenges. Again, you can get it on Amazon. They're pricey. This stuff is pricey, but I just put one under my tongue. It lasts all night while I sleep, and my lungs are getting this wonderful, helpful essential oil mix. So,
what is that called?
It's called Thieves. Like
Thieves.
the plural of thieves. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure there's other products out there that do the same thing, but that's the one I know of. And it has really made a difference for me. It used to be when I went on the planes, especially when I was younger, a week later, I'd come down with something. I just, picked up stuff on the plane. So that's another thing. I think that if I thought I was coming down with COVID, I'd be sniffing that. And it does dilate. It does open up your sinuses and everything helps you.
And that's called Thieves, Thievebs. Thieves.
IEVES, yes. Uh-huh.
Awesome.
Just like it, the plural of thief. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
Young Living.
Awesome. Okay, before we go into vaccines, because we want to talk about vaccines while you guys are here, because that's the whole agenda. So we want to go there. Dr. Jack, since we got you, thanks for coming. I know that you had some issues earlier. Viruses have been around since the planet was formed. Before humans were even on the planet, we've been here for roughly 150,000 years. Our bodies have been dealing with viruses for 150,000 years. This is not something new. So, Dr. Jack, when I say viruses, what comes up for you? What is it that you're teaching here on the Big Island of Hawaii about viruses?
Well, when they talk about viruses, if you look at an old World Dictionary definition of that, that's been around maybe at least 50 years, the definition of the word virus is the word poison, as in snake venom. Anything that's poisonous to you is considered a virus. But unfortunately, the medical industrial complex has an enormous amount of power, and they have the power to change or add definitions in dictionaries and encyclopedias. And they added the definition that a virus is a microorganism that invades the body, attacks cells, blah, blah, blah. Just like their definition for bacteria. Well, along came the electron microscope, and so they were looking desperately for something that they could blame symptoms on, and they discovered these little things called exosomes or lysosomes, which are basically enzymes in the cell at the cellular level that their job is to clean up the cell and process waste matter and debris from the cells for elimination from the body. So what's actually being identified as viruses is actually part of our body. Okay, it's not some foreign invading microbe that's attacks us and takes over cells, and God bless those people. They've been watching too many science fiction movies, I think. And so my background is we understand. I'm an orthopath, which means we consider symptoms to be acute chronic symptoms to be right action initiated by the body, by your autonomic nervous system part of your brain, as purging processes. That's what a cold is, flu, pneumonia, etc., and so forth, and also COVID. Okay, these are all right action processes initiated by your subconscious brain so that you don't perish from being overly toxic. And then if you go the medical route, you take all these, so-called medicines, which don't have side effects, they have poisoning effects, but that's not good marketing. You can't say this, the poisoning effects of X is, because people wouldn't take it, so they have to use the euphemistic expression side effects. But unfortunately, they add to the toxic load. So it's a great business model. People come to you because they're ill, and then you give them stuff to suppress their symptoms, which means that acute symptoms become chronic, chronic become degenerative, and then you check out early. So unfortunately, most people that seek out medical intervention are dying not only from their underlying pathology, but the treatments, and that's certainly true for COVID with the intubation, the breathing machines and the various medications they give them to sedate them, and it's like they're already compromised, and then it'd be like trying to put out a fire by pouring gasoline on it. Well, we did everything we could for him, but the virus got him anyway. So it's the perfect cover story. According to the Institute of Medicine, which is a quasi-public agency, they've stated publicly that we actually have more bacteria in and on our bodies than actual cells that we're composed of. And the average adult human being is composed of anywhere from 80 to 100 trillion cells. So we have more bacteria than that. If bacteria caused pathology, we wouldn't even exist, right?
Thank you, Dr. Maxwell.
You're welcome.
I want to talk about vaccines, and because this is what the agenda is. This is where it's headed, and this next piece is really mind blowing, because if you don't know this about vaccines, vaccine companies are actually exempt from testing and making sure that their vaccine is safe and that it's actually doing what it says it's going to do. They're actually exempt, and they're the only medical product that is exempt from testing, which blows my mind that can even be possible. And the pharmaceutical, also what you have to understand about the pharmaceutical companies is that they have actually funded the CDC, FDA, and the HHS, Health Human Services. And these are institutions that are actually designed to protect us, and the pharmaceutical companies have a big armhold on these companies, on these institutions. So this is not, a lot of times people go, Michelle, this conspiracy theories, but this is actually, people can find this out. So Peggy, can you speak about vaccines and why is it that they actually are exempt from the testing to make sure that they're safe for people? That's actually hugely important. These vaccines that are being put into our Keiki, which are their children, they're not being tested for safety. And yet these children are born, they get 70 vaccines for this beautiful child, perfect baby that comes out of the womb, and now he's got 70 of these, who knows what, untested vaccines that are now going into them. Now they're wanting a vaccine for this COVID, which they haven't, they don't have enough time to test it, and they're already doing trials. So can you take a look at that, and Dr. Mary,
Do you want to answer that, Peggy, or shall I?
Either one.
Okay. Well, it's a little more. Go ahead.
Oh.
Did you want to take
We
it?
can't hear Peggy. We can't hear Peggy. Peggy, are you on?
Okay. Yeah. We can't hear you, Peggy.
Oh, bummer. Yeah.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Yes. Oh,
Okay. Good.
wait. I can't hear you.
How about this? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yay! My dog was barking, so I had it on mute there. Let me talk just for a minute about the law again, and then Dr. Mary, of course, all about the science. What I want to say is this: even if there was a vaccine where you could be vaccinated, and it would be the same as eating fruits and vegetables and getting your 8 hours of sleep, and you would live to be 120. There is no law that is valid that can enforce someone to have a vaccine. So what they try to do is they will take away your ability to live life freely. So what they did in California is they created an illegal law, an unlawful law that says a child may not be able to go to a public school unless they have these vaccines. All right, there are many people fighting this. It is completely unlawful. The beautiful side effect is that there's a whole renaissance in homeschooling and, you know, the one-room schoolhouse and collaborations of parents, which is, as an educator for 30 years, I'm not in favor of public school. So it's been a hidden gift. But the point is this, even if the vaccines are safe or were found to be safe, no one can make you take a vaccine. You alone have the sovereign authority over your body. And I want to explain something very clearly here, which is called the Patient's Bill of Rights. The Patient's Bill of Rights is a universally recognized standard of care, which means if you have a broken leg and you show up in an emergency room and they want to give you a shot of morphine, you have the right to say, I don't want the morphine, but I want you to fix my broken leg. They cannot send you away and say, nope, if you don't get the morphine, we're not going to fix your leg. It's the same thing as being tested. It's the same thing as being vaccinated. I hear from thousands of people on a weekly basis, tens of thousands of people saying, Peggy, I can't go in for this test. They want me to wear a mask. They want me to be tested. And what can I do? What you can do is you can have the nurse or the head nurse or the charge nurse or the hospital administrator read to you the Patient's Bill of Rights. And the reason why I recommend that the healthcare professional read the Patient's Bill of Rights, because it's much better if they are reading it than you're trying to read it to them. And when you get to number 1 says you have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. It's very, very important. Point number 3 says that you have, number 1, 3, and 6 are the most important. They say that you may not participate in any medical experiment without your consent. All right, taking a vaccine is a medical experiment.
Yes.
Because you do not know what the result is. You have the right to refuse that just on legal grounds. Further, it says that you have the right to refuse certain treatments without being denied other treatments. All of this goes to education. Unfortunately, many people are not aware of these standards and regulations and laws, and so they're bamboozled, hoodwinked, and railroaded into these things because the doctors get money. The doctors get money for giving those vaccinations. The hospital, again, this all goes back to fraud and corruption. And because these hospitals are licensed by the state, you go back to your state auditor and you say, I want an investigation done on this hospital. Further, you can report these doctors to the licensing board, the medical licensing board, and you can say, I want an investigation done on this doctor who is railroading me and pressuring me into these medical treatments that are not appropriate. So for the time being, until communism completely suffocates us all, I would continue that we need hundreds, we need thousands, we need millions of these complaints to flood these offices so that they can no longer turn a blind eye. So I'm going to defer to Dr. Mary about the medicine on it and the science. But as far as you, as a sovereign individual, you have the right. And you as a parent, you do not have to be railroaded into getting your kids vaccinated. I would just say no to the vaccines. I don't get them. I don't plan on getting them. And I will not get one.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, the medical boards have pretty much been co-opted by the idea of standard of care. And what that means is that if you report a doctor for pushing a vaccine on you, nothing's going to happen to them. You know, I mean, it's the opposite way. In fact, I'm a consultant sometimes for the doctors who are trying to defend themselves from the medical boards, and that's pretty much what it's about. So, getting back to the vaccines, though, you know, it's a biological product, and actually, we almost vaccines almost died out in this country in the early 80s because they're biological products, which means that they will probably have more side effects than a drug, simply because a drug is a single chemical. And a biological product, you have multiple things that could affect the body. And so the liability, coupled with the fact that generally speaking, a person gets like one or two vaccines, you know, a vaccine and a booster maybe. It just wasn't profitable because every year the FDA is able to perform more regulations, and the cost of these regulations are going up exponentially every year. If you want to see the numbers, get my book, Death by Regulation, or send me an email through my website, ruat.com, and I'll send you a picture. Anyhow, but getting back to the vaccine, so the U.S. government in the mid-'80s, I think it was 84, but I'm not sure I've got the right date, decided that now there would be no liability for vaccine manufacturers, that the federal government, the taxpayer, us, would take on the liability. And so a vaccine court would decide whether or not there's a problem. And it's paid out, I don't remember the exact number, but it's paid out a lot of money since then, because of course there are problems, side effects with any drug. You know? I mean, if you take a drug, you're going to have side effects. And if you take biologics, probably you're going to have more. And I wouldn't take 70 vaccinations as an adult. I cannot imagine children doing that with their immature immune system and making it through that. I mean, I'm actually surprised we don't have more problems than we do now. You know, that's pretty serious. Plus, from what I've been hearing, and I haven't validated this myself, but my understanding is there's still some mercury in vaccines, there's still aluminum, and the two together are even worse than the one by themselves. So we should have the right to say no, but what happens when a new baby is born? They're pretty much vaccinated before the parents are even aware of it. And it used to be, and it still is in some states, that they take blood spots for genetic sequencing. Now they can sequence the entire genome of a new baby. And in Texas, of course, we sued. And they had to destroy all those. But that's not true in every state. And informed consent, okay, I chair an IRB. I know all about informed consent. And there's a lot of informed consent violations going on. You know, everything that the government does is pretty much an experiment, in my opinion. And we do not have informed consent. But did I? So Michelle, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, and I'm actually looking at our chat from people here that aren't here. They're online, and thank you for that. And I have a question for Peggy. Is it legal to force people to get vaccinated to travel?
That's a good question. Is it the airlines that's doing it, or is it the country that's issuing the visa? That would be my question.
That's a good question. It's Robert hasn't said, so I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat here. The problem is that when you're flying on a plane, the captain has the final say as to who he's going to carry on the plane. And if it's a receiving country, I don't have any, jurisdiction or anything to say over a receiving country. So if Thailand requires a vaccine, I don't think that is a country that has, that's protected by a constitution that protects human rights. So I wouldn't be able to speak about other countries, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, and we have another. Oh, sorry. We have another question from. Where's it? Shannon? Laura. She has a question for Mary. She's in Laura's art. She wonders if you've heard of the treatment
I just emailed her. I just answered her chat and said to send me that question, because I'm not familiar with that. I mean, that may be it may be something I could, once I find out what the structure is, I can probably say something about it. But right now, I'm not familiar with that word, and it might be a drug I know of, but it might be called something different, over there. So I'll have to find that out. I'll have to look some stuff up.
Okay. Okay, and let me just I just want to check the list and see if there's any more questions. Does anybody have any questions here? I don't know. This is a question. We have a question of what's in the vaccine.
What was the question?
What's in the vaccine?
Good question. It's hard to know because it's not like you have all the details on the package insert for vaccines. But one of the things they do, let me just say this: there's different kinds of vaccines. There's a live vaccine, which probably is not something you want to take because one of the side effects is getting the very thing you're trying to protect against. There's an attenuated vaccine. Now, how they attenuate it or make it less deadly is they put it through a series of animals. So when you take an attenuated vaccine, it could have animal cells in it or recombinant viruses that happen naturally through this attenuated process. These are some of the side effects, that you could get with vaccines. There is a belief that a vaccine, and I've actually heard libertarians say this, you should take the vaccine because it protects other people. Well, it doesn't really work that way. And that's because even the best vaccines do not work 100% of the time. You have to have a competent immune system for it to work, for starters. And, a lot of these outbreaks of measles are from children who have been vaccinated for measles, but their immune system wasn't up to making the right kind of antibody. And it turns out that it's not just any antibody we do. There's whole different classes of antibodies, and some of them attack your own body. So, there's a lot of things going on with the vaccine. And I'm not saying, I want to be really clear here, I'm not saying you should never take a vaccine. There may be cases where you want to stimulate your immune system to prevent a particular something. But that's your choice, and that's what you have to figure out. But I certainly, I'm 70 years old, so I'm in the high risk category. I won't take it. Certainly not unless I hear more about it, because one of the studies that was done by the Department of Defense showed that in the 2017-2018 flu season, if you got the flu shot, yes, you got some protection against the flu. But what you didn't get protection against was coronavirus. Now, whether it was the same coronavirus we're talking about now or not, it's not clear. It could have been around then. I've had a lot of friends who have told me, yes, I had something really nasty back in December and November, and I went to my gym after and found out half the people had it. And it took me a whole month to get over it. And when I've done a lot of webinars like this, and I talk to the people who are hosting them, like Michelle, they usually say, yeah, I've heard this too from a bunch of my friends. So this thing might have been around for a long time. Now, I want to point out, for those of you who are technically inclined, that the DoD study, Department of Defense study, showed that there was roughly 30% more coronavirus if you had the flu shot. That's a pretty big number. And the p-value, for those of you who are technically inclined, is less than 0.01.
Can you say that again? That was amazing. That was
Sure.
Can you repeat
Sure.
that?
So in the DoD study, which measured the flu from 2017 to 2018, in the military personnel who had the flu shot, yes, they were protected more against the flu. But the downside was that they were not protected against the coronavirus. In fact, they were more likely to get it by a factor of about 30% greater.
That's huge.
The p-value, which is how we measure if something works in the sciences, was 0.01, which means that result with the coronavirus has a 1 in 100 chance of being wrong. Normally, when we say something works, we're saying it has a 0.05 p. So what that means is we accept that if there's 5 chances out of 100 that something didn't work, we say, yeah, it did work. It did work. That's so low, we're not going to worry about it. This was 0.01. So instead of 5%, it's 1%.
Wow.
1 out of 100. So I'm just trying to tell you how strong of a result that is.
That's huge.
Yeah, like I would hesitate to take the flu shot in a place where there's a lot of coronavirus.
Yeah.
Now again, everybody's got to make their decision on that, because if but I'm just kind of pointing out now there's a lot of these fact-checking places that are saying, oh yeah, that wasn't COVID. Well, it's a coronavirus, you got to think about that.
Yeah. So, so let's finish off with talking about the fear. What I love about today is I'm getting some people can hear me here and some people can't hear me there. So can you guys hear me okay? Peggy?
I'm hearing better now.
Okay, great. So today's an amazing day because we have people all over the world who are protesting, over 1 million people in Berlin, London, and now we're doing this today to start us off because those of you watching, we are going to start a march called Hawaii Freedom Walk. And we're going to be starting next Saturday at 3 p.m. So everybody who's online and here, please mark your calendars. Saturdays at 3 p.m. We're going to start at between Cam Highway and Henry Street. And we're going to be walking an hour with signs. And for those of you who are online and here, obviously, who's registered, you'll get more information about that. But let's talk about the fear because back in World War II, in the Nuremberg trials, this is really, really interesting. When the Allied forces were prosecuting the prominent members of the Nazi Party, they asked them, how did you get these regular people to comply with what you were doing? And they had one word, and that was fear. And they said, you could literally, if you have people afraid enough, they will walk themselves into their own slaughter. So that is not us. We are not going to be walking into our own slaughter. We are saying no to this. We are saying yes to freedom. And but fear is really, really powerful. Really, really powerful. And I'm really curious about Peggy and what do you say to people who are afraid? What do you say to them when they're like they want to get the vaccine and they're have a lot of fear and they're living in fear?
That's right, Michelle. And before I started doing the Healthy American, I've been in the health and wellness, well-being field for quite a while. And for the last couple of years, I was doing a daily show called PMO, Your Positive Mental Outlook. And it was all about helping people focus on the positive, live in faith instead of fear. And so fear and division and confusion and despair are the exact tools of the enemy. You just explained what happened in Germany. Fear would drive people literally to their death. So I have 3 remedies. And those that are living in fear, it's very easy for those of us who are, somehow we have more confidence, we have more faith, we have more knowledge, we have more, a better standing that we can go forward. For some reason, that's our makeup. And there are others that want to hold back, want to have someone else take the lead, want someone else to do the research. I'm sure Dr. Mary and Dr. John, you know all about that. They're just not willing to do that. They don't want to dig deeper. They want to just listen to the news, listen to the neighbor, not rock the boat. And that's fine. So what I recommend, I have 3 simple steps. And this is really my calling card. And number 1 is education. And that's what you're doing here, Michelle. And with our, medical experts, we literally are bringing education. When someone is living in fear, their rational mind is hijacked and they are running on adrenaline. They are running on cortisol. Both of these things are going to ruin their health. And we really need to be patient with those people. It's very easy for me to fly off the handle and to be impatient with people who just don't get it. But we really need to work with love, with acceptance, with patience, through prayer, meditation, other practices that help us to be more grounded and not living in that fight or flight. It's easy to say, it's harder to practice. you guys are in Hawaii, you've got the ocean, you've got nature, you've got, the lovely environment that can help nurture you. So reminding people to take time for self-care and so forth. So my three main points are this. You need to be in connection. The powers that be, the evildoers, have sought to divide us by stay at home, don't go to work, be isolated, isolate from your loved ones. The crimes against humanity that are happening in the nursing homes and the homes that are, for those with disabilities. This is worse, in my opinion, than Nazi Germany, because at least in Nazi Germany, the people were trying to fight back, and here they're almost going along with it. It's brainwashing of the highest level, and it literally is, my heart shatters into a million pieces. So you go to see those loved ones. You stand for your rights. You don't see your loved one through a window or on the patio. You go there. You be with them. Connection, connection, connection. Education, education. Action, action. Those are the 3 steps. Be with other individuals. Educate yourself and others. Take action, even if the results are not what you want. That is going to lift you out of despair. Hope and look forward to brighter days ahead. I believe that there are brighter days. We are going to have new communities. Look what you're creating there in Hawaii. You've got people that you probably haven't met before that are coming together. We're going to be creating new societies. The antidote to the New World Order, which is what they're trying to do, is new local communities. Hawaii has always been a leader in that area with the healers and the alternative medicine and, just kind of spontaneous gatherings. This is the time for that. Go back to those, ancient ways. Go back to the family ways, the traditional ways. This is going to be a resurgence, a renaissance. We're on the forefront of it. It is a revolution. It is a rally, and we've got to keep that going. So that's really my treatise: is connection, education, and action, whatever way that looks to you. Don't throw those people overboard that are arguing with you. You got to throw them a lifeboat. Be there for them. Their time may come. Don't burn those bridges. And I say all hands on deck.
Woo! Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much for that. You're getting a major applause for all that. And we're totally on board with new community. Okay. Any last words for us? And then we have, there's a little bird right here. And then we have two more speakers, but it won't go that long. But anyway, any last words for us? We'll do Dr. Mary, Dr. Jack, and Peggy at the end. So any last words for Hawaii?
Well,
Okay, Jack.
not everybody go at the same time here. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Any last words for us, you guys, before we say aloha? Can you?
Well, I would like to emphasize what Peggy said. Education to me seems to be the answer to this, because once people have understand that there's nothing going around, that this is just a concept, and that it's toxemia that causes symptoms, not something that we catch. It's not a contagious thing. That's medical thinking. Once the fear has been dispelled, people can come together and fight back against the powers that be that are using that against people's misunderstanding of what's really happening. So to me, education is the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Mary? Oh, she can't hear me.
Well, I would just kind of reiterate what my colleagues here have said in the sense that, we're seeing the products of what happens with government schools. Everybody kind of worships the government, somewhat like a abused child still thinks their parents love them. And so, we do need to be careful about how.
Oh no, she got cut off. Okay, sorry about that. So Dr. Peggy, any last words for us?
Yes, I think Dr. Mary might be coming back on. Here she is.
Oh, there she is. Okay, good.
I'm back.
Okay.
I don't know what
Go
happened.
ahead. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say we do need to be careful and approach gently, because really you aren't going to win anyone over by telling them they're wrong. You just give them what you know in a very gentle way, and a lot of people won't see it, but a lot of people will. And you just gotta, you aren't gonna, you're not going to 100% change people. Change is hard, and you need to create a really loving space for them to change their minds, because none of us like to recognize that we've been thinking the wrong way, or a way that's not realistic. So I just like to, really emphasize what my colleagues have said.
Yeah, or that we've been fooled, or that the government and the media are lying to us, and they've been like people. When I first learned this, I was floored. I was like, what? And I actually cried like a baby, and then I was depressed for 2 days.
Exactly.
And then I was like, okay, well, what do we do now? Now what? And this is the now what. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And Peggy, what last words for us?
Yes, you're right, Michelle. There is a period of grieving. Many people are in denial, and they do not want to face the reality of what's going on. It's very troubling to me that people that I thought I knew well, it's almost like they're rooting for the virus, like they want more deaths, like they're disappointed that it wasn't severe enough. And the reason why is because they gave up so much and they sacrificed so much. They gave up their job, their livelihood, doing their own activities, that they wanted it to be worth it. All right. Everything they went through to then be told, wait a minute, this was a fraud. You were faking us. And I did all this. I stayed home. I didn't go on my trip. I lost my income for nothing. They don't want to believe it. And there will be people who live in denial for the rest of their lives. And we know those people. We know people who do not accept that trauma happened to them. They don't accept that somebody could have betrayed them. And it's almost like we need to be the psychologists for the world. We do need to be the healers. And that takes, I have a video that's called How to Speak Your Mind Without Losing Your Mind. And it is my approach on how to have these conversations with people that see the world differently than you do. One of the most important things is to help people come upon these discoveries on their own. Now, everybody that's with your group there and all of us, we're very quick. Our minds work quickly. We can connect the dots. We're like, yes, this is obvious. Not many people are like that, actually. Many people need to take a little bit longer to be a little bit more, thoughtful, or just stew in it a little bit longer. And I want to tell you a funny story, a very quick story. Years ago, hubby and I used to sell collectible vintage things at the swap meet. And we would put them out on display and put all the glassware together and all the ashtrays. And they didn't want to buy that. They wanted to go through the boxes and find it on their own. People want to find out this stuff. We can lead them in the way, but we can never say, I told you so. This is what I've been talking about all this time. It is going to push them away. So we need to allow them to have the discovery, kind of like children, when children are learning. You don't say, see, I told you. That's not going to, even though we want to say that, it just doesn't work. And I have had people come to me months later who were completely in favor of the masks, finally saying, hey, I'm trying to talk to my mother-in-law because she wants my child to wear a mask and I don't want my kid to wear a mask. Can you help me? And, I want to say, oh, I was talking about this for months, but I can't do that. All I can say is, yes, here's the information. So be compassionate. These people are suffering. They're suffering as if they had lost. I've had many losses in my life, personal losses of family members. No loss to me has been as traumatic as this, because this is a loss of a way of life.
Yes.
And it's a loss of our freedom. And so I don't want people to hop, skip, and jump over the grieving. I also offer classes on life after loss and all of that, but it's very, very important that we acknowledge it, we grieve it, We are angry. We are sad. I love that you said you cried. That's releasing the emotions. Most important is, where do I go now? What do I do with this information now? How can I apply this moving ahead? That is the antidote. That is the way you heal, is to apply what you've experienced and apply it moving ahead. So those are my last parting words on that.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, it's been kind of challenging to let people just have their views, and I have to do that. We have to do that, and love them up and trust. So much mahalo. And what do you guys think? So much mahalo to you guys. Peggy, I'm going to be checking out your website for our next steps to get us unmasked. And again, you guys watching, we do have 2 more speakers who are going to talk about sovereignty. And then Danny Hashimoto is going to come on next, hopefully. And he has something to share as well. But we are, again, meeting every Saturday starting next week at 3 p.m. at Queen Cam Highway and Henry to do our Hawaii Freedom Walk. And we need numbers. We need numbers. So everybody watching this, mark your calendar. Much aloha, everyone. And if you guys, when you're ready, if you would just click end live, because I'm going to stay on and finish up. And much aloha, and come to the Big Island. We'd love to throw you guys a party.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. All right. So we do have, hopefully, Danny Hashimoto will be coming on in a moment, I hope. And he is a native Hawaiian for 5 decades and has been active in the community in helping to solve numerous issues, local, state, national issues, and beyond. He is the president of For Our Rights, a nonprofit organization focusing on civil rights, education, and solutions. And so hopefully he'll be coming on. And the one thing while I wait for him is I want to say is that it's not a mistake that, I've been living here on the island for 2 years and visiting for 25. And it's not a mistake that each one of us is here doing the work that we're doing. I learned a word, it's called kuleana. And this is our kuleana, and it's our responsibility for ourselves and for our community to take back what is rightfully ours, which is freedom, which is the right to gather when we want to gather, and the right to go into businesses and entrepreneurs and business owners. It is their right to run their business without a bunch of restrictions. And this is our kuleana for whatever reason, that we are each here at this time in history. It is not a mistake that we're here. The probability of you being born is 1 in 400 trillion chances. It's literally a miracle that you have the personality that you have. It's literally a miracle that you are who you are. It's like the Buddhists talk about it like this. The probability of you being born is as if you were to throw a life preserver in the middle of the ocean somewhere. And somewhere in the ocean is one turtle. And on the very first try, the turtle sticks its head out of the water, and its head is right in that life preserver. That is the chance you would be born, you with your personality, with where you're at in the world and who you are. So it's not by accident that each one of us is here. It's not by accident that we've met, and it's not by accident that this is our kuleana, and this is our time to take a stand for what we know to be right and what we know to be true. And we're doing that. So everybody on the live stream, yes, that's me right there.
I'll be coming up next. That's Michelle.
Yes, Danny, are you there? Danny, can you hear me? You gotta click your video. I see Danny is, I believe, here.
Okay, hang on.
Okay, he says, hang on. He's gonna be talking about they don't know. That's the whole point. That's the whole issue. We don't know. We know that they have. So the question here is what's in the vaccines? But the problem is we don't know what's in the vaccines. We do know that they have had aluminum and mercury in the vaccine, and we do know that parents sign away their right to any liability any recourse of suing the vaccine companies. We know that. We know that people have died and have had serious injuries from vaccines, and those children, they'll never be the same again, and there's no recourse. You sign a bunch of documents. So yes, that is the problem. Malama? So Malama is saying one thing that's in the vaccine is say that again. Recombinant DNA, and I do not know what that is. And the microchip. Lots of stuff. So Danny, are you getting your video on? Click on that little circle in the upper left-hand side so we can see you, and then we're almost there, everyone. You guys, great info. Thank you. I'm reading some of these. Turn off audio. Okay. Yes. Okay, Danny, are you there? Can you hear me? Danny? Okay. All right, see here. No, we don't want to do that. Oh, I just did that. Okay, hold on with us, you guys. We're here in Kahaluu. And hey, Debbie. Glad to see everybody here. Woo! What a journey we're on, huh? What a journey. What a journey we're all on together. Okay. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually have Gene come over and do his talk while we wait for Danny to come on. So Gene is our last speaker, and he's going to be talking about, first I would love him to talk about the auditor, because you know what's going on with the auditor up in city council. The state, the auditor, remember Peggy talking about the auditor needs to do his work in making sure that there is science behind the mandates and the things that the government is putting on the people. He needs to audit and say, hey, where's the science around this? And he's actually being blocked. So you want to?
Oh, you told already. You told everybody what that's about. I can repeat that.
So he's going to repeat that, and then he's also going to talk about natural law. And you got to kind of scooch in here because these guys got to hear you. Trade me places.
Oh, you mean because Danny's there?
Well, no, because you got to come sit here because these people right here need to hear you.
What people where?
These people.
Oh, those people.
There's
Hi.
31 people online live. There were 48.
I'll go back and forth.
Yeah, so you got to go.
Hello.
Okay, go.
Hi, everybody. Hi, you guys. For the flesh and blood in the present moment, okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Those of you on the internet as well, and thank you so much for everybody who came, took the time, busy schedules, made the time to come and circle of sovereign people, and that's great. And so earlier in the day, while we were gathered, appreciate that, Michelle.
Keep going.
Thank you.
I'm going to sit here.
Earlier in the day when we were gathered, you saw one of the police officers came by, and I don't know what he's checking for. Are we sitting 6 feet apart? Do we have masks? How many are there? Are they armed? I don't know what he was looking for. He stayed in his car, and then he went off. And we are ready to engage officers, employees, agents of the occupying corporation, and we do so with aloha. So I'm very grateful that we've been working with the sovereigns on Kauai. Hey, Danny, your gang in Kauai, as well as Maui, Oahu, Molokai, and of course this island. And so for those of you who read this, thank you so much, and especially those who signed it. Because, to know your values is one thing, to do the research, to do your due diligence, and then to actually stand up in your values, to walk your talk. And so big mahalos for everybody that signed. We've got almost 20 people that signed with their little thumbprint. Big mahalos. Got 3 more spaces. And this is a notice of medical liability and trespass of unalienable rights, your God-given rights. And I love it because it was a coordination and a cooperation and a collaboration between all the islands. And really, a lot of the principles of law that are on this document, people had to die, spend years of their life. And actually, this is why people like my dad, your uncle, your grandpa, whoever it was, went off into the world, and unbeknownst to them, they were actually fighting for the corporation. Okay? Everything we were told, almost everything, was a lie. And now we're waking up to that. Now the whole world is waking up to that. But the principles of our unalienable rights, and the same principles that our dads, grandpas, uncles went to war, fought, died, and even killed people for, those principles are true. They're real. And we now can apply them. So I'm going to read this real quick because it's very informational of how the sovereign Americans in Hawaii and the sovereign Hawaiians in their own country are now working together, because there's only one law on earth. Can you guys hear me out? Hi, hey, Michelle, there's you.
Well, I'm trying to get your video on, but
Okay.
it's not working.
There's only one law on earth, and even though there's 2 political venues primarily on this soil, there's really just one law. So, we the people, Hawaiians and Americans, declare our lawful standing as sentient, sovereign beings with unalienable rights granted to us by God. As sovereign beings, we the people, claimants, are free to exercise any and all of our God-given unalienable rights as codified on this soil. Declaration of Rights, 1839, Kauikea Oli, Kamehameha III, and the 1852 Constitution of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Sovereign Americans living in Hawaii are also protected in their unalienable rights under both Hawaiian Kingdom law and the 1776 Declaration of Independence by the unincorporated United States Constitution of the Republic, as stated by the 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, 9th, 13th, and 14th Amendments. The foundation of Hawaiian Kingdom, Ko Hawaii Pai Aina, and the U.S. Constitutional Republic honors and protects our individual and collective freedom, our unalienable God-given rights, and our sovereignty by the laws of nature and of nature's God. Now, this article here, this affidavit of truth, was recorded and registered, and this notice of liability is registered RR 189637862 US, and that was our gentleman Megesu, who is a sovereign American, on Kauai. And I did add amendments, authorized amendments under Ko Hawaii Pai Aina, and I did that this morning. So as we speak, sovereign people of 2 political venues, I don't know if you were Brazilian or Japanese or Canadian, you too, all of your unalienable rights, every man and woman on this soil is guaranteed, protected in their unalienable right to full disclosure and substantive due process. Okay, here we go. Law enforcement employees and agents, and so far only one can feel the aloha mana.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Law enforcement employees, agents of the occupying power, United States Incorporated, the county, state, and federal public officials are mandated and obligated by their oath of office to serve and protect all people by upholding the rule of law under the laws of nature and of nature's God, as codified on this soil, Hawaiian Kingdom, Ko Hawaii Pai Aina, the host nation, and under the 1776 Declaration of Independence and the unincorporated U.S. Constitutional Republic. Law enforcement, county, state, and federal officials and their agents and sub-agents, public or private, are accountable for any and all actions that violate our medical, unalienable, and constitutional rights. We the people, Hawaiians and American claimants, are prepared, and we are, to identify and point out, should they occur, any violations and violators of the law of the Hawaiian Kingdom, Ko Hawaii Pa'aina, and the unincorporated Constitution of the Republic, the law of nations, and the U.S. Army law of occupation. We are ready to take action peacefully as needed, and we the people, claimants, do not forfeit any of our unalienable God-given rights to anyone.
Amen.
Okay? You like that? It's you. This is your ohana. In Hawaii, we say lahui. Lahui is the gathering of light. Or the gathering of light. Almost wrong. This affidavit of truth, notice of medical liability and trespass of unalienable rights, is hereby served on any and all such violations and violators. This affidavit of truth, a lawful public record document, is pertinent to all individual beings that trespass upon our authorized, unalienable, God-given rights to freedom. This affidavit and notice of medical liability and trespass of unalienable rights applies on an individual level to those operating in official capacity. You will be held accountable under the law.
Amen.
Okay? So if they come with aloha, we serve them aloha truth notice before they pull out citations, before they pull out handcuffs, whatever they do. They've got to pay attention to who we are, where we are, and what is the law. Yes?
I just had this guy right out here tell both of my children that we were all going to get arrested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hey.
I mean, like, to my children.
Yeah.
Can I take this?
No, we can talk to him later. No problem.
Okay.
Okay. So, you want me to stop?
What?
I have a couple
Yeah.
announcements real quick. Okay. So you guys, a lot of you people already know this stuff, but it's good to hear it and to know it's in writing. We've got 3 more spaces and there will be 20 signatures. If anybody else wants to sign, hang on. Okay. A blue pen, if you don't mind, and then I got a thumbprint. Okay, that's all right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got blue pen. You just have to be awake and aware of who you are, where you are, and what is the law. Okay? Yeah. Okay.
What is it called that we're signing?
We're signing an affidavit of truth. Okay. Let me give you the official title. Oh, aren't you signing? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, sign. Today's the day. And you can notice of medical liability. You can write it out. Okay. Okay, so we gotta take action, and the ladies, they're from the mainland, right? Those ladies.
Yeah.
Okay, those ladies were correct in that we have a really important next step opportunity and obligation. And what does that mean? Besides gathering like this, we have to actually assert our rights since we possess the truth and the law. And what better way for a community besides gathering like this to assert their rights in this time of such chaos and such uncertainty, especially on the back end of a law that's passed that now the state of Hawaii has agreed to allow the shipping to go up 45%. Okay, so shipping costs will go up 45%. When that actually kicks in, it's already been allowed by your occupying corporation. So what do? We gotta start planting food, okay? And how do we do it? We're going to be, luckily we have organic farmers, Hawaiian kind, Kanaka Maoli kind, Haole kind, the Punatics, everybody. Hey, I say that with love, for sure. So the tribes got to come together, and what we're going to do is we're going to occupy and plant, make Kanaka gardens on every island. We're going to serve aloha notice to the DLNR, particularly the parks and the parks department. And we've already worked with them when we did the obelisk title correction. That was parks department. We signed but we sign just to be cooperative. They have a bureaucracy and a paperwork that they got to do. No problem. We'll work with you cooperatively, but when we sign as sovereign people. We don't surrender any of our rights, okay? Oh, they're good with that. Because for them, all they got to do, they're pushing paper through, and as long as they get the signature, they can push it through. Now, at some point, Attorney General Claire Connors is going to say, you can't, you must, you whatever. Those people, including the governor, attorney general, the mayor, all the county council members, how many years is it going to go by that we're going to allow them to be in dishonor and default? We just can't, we can't wait anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to plant food. Gosh. Okay? So that's what we're going to do on every island. We have Kauai, like I said, Kauai, Oahu, Maui, Molokai, and this island. On the east side, we're already beginning to have conversations with the Konohiki of that Kamehameha statue. Okay? We're doing the proper protocol. We're talking about superior title way before they arrested our queen. Now, I know there's going to be internal controversy because some Kanaka Maoli families say, oh, that's my auntie then. That's my great-great-great-grandpa. And other people will say, oh, no, it's mine. And it will go like that. But meanwhile, because we know how lawful, peaceful adjudication works, we just promise each other no one's going to get hurt, no harm, and we can adjudicate this on the side while the people plant food. Okay, so we must not allow the little details of jurisdiction, of title, and all that. The big picture is this. Hawaii is in continuity. The sovereign Americans here have woken up to all of their God-given unalienable rights. It is protected. That is the foundation of the Declaration of Independence, 1776, is the same Keakua creator in the Hawaiian Kingdom Declaration of Rights, 1839. So unity in the law already is in our possession. It exists. So that means unity in the people is right there for us to activate on. Now, for the Americans, this will be the last thing I say. If you have any questions about, how you want to protect your right to plant food, or to just follow your bliss any way you want. Just do no harm, okay? And if people kill for any reason, now we're empowered because we know how lawful adjudication works. Where was I going with that? Okay, so we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be planting food, and I think it's real important. If you have an interest in planting food, okay, or you know somebody equipment or hoolies, baby hoolies, or they have connections, we're going to be doing that, and we're going to be building infrastructures for people to live. Yeah, there's a lot of homeless people, houseless people, and we can get the materials from the mountain and we can build it with Kanaka Maoli style hollies, and we can shelter our people. And we don't have to do this in accordance to Agenda 21 laws from I don't know where in Brussels or something like that have been now imposed upon the county corporation. So really great time to be alive right now, because I see different generations coming together, different political venues coming together. Unity in the law, the Aloha Truth stands. It is your birthright. Freedom is your birthright. And natural law justice is in our possession. So if anybody trespasses you, you can call me. You can call each other. We've got each other's back. So congratulations and God bless you. Thank you so very much.
Okay, last part is freedom prayer. This is something that I love doing that brings us all together, and that's Jean, everyone. Oh God, yeah, she's I forgot your first name. Etheria. This is something you guys want to hear, real quick.
Aloha. My voice is gone. I've been talking a lot lately.
So what we got going on is in light of, and Nestor, we should read what that just came from Oahu. Do you have that pulled up? Okay. In light of everything that's going on with the COVID restrictions, I have an NDA because I've been in emergency management for 19 years. And I have like 13 certifications from FEMA. So I can't speak directly about certain things, but I do know that these islands are they're going to be rolling out mandatory vaccinations here first because they're small, they're easy to militarize, and because there's an indigenous population that's present here. And my grandparents are full-blooded Hawaiian, and so that hits me close. So when watching, I hope everybody here has watched Plandemic. Have you all seen it? If you have not, then please make a point to do that. You can go to BitChute, BITCH, Plandemic, the movie. You have to watch that. So it's on BitChute, BITCHUTE.com. It's a streaming platform where you can go download both of those. Anyways, that information there is everything that you need to understand that this is absolutely an agenda and it has nothing to do with just giving.
Yeah, let him know what you're doing.
Right, and so what we're doing in looking at the email or looking at the situation is what we started to do is we need some volunteers to help us. We've covered the Big Island, we're working on Maui, and we still have the other islands. We are getting all of the email addresses of every single teacher, every police officer, every employee in the Health and Human Services, all of the legislators, everybody on all of the islands that are in critical and social infrastructure. And we are going to launch a massive email campaign to make sure that the links to Plandemic, both of the trailer and the movies, again, if you have not watched that, please make a point to do so. And Vaxxed, what the COVID-19 stands for, and I don't have it. It is within the vaccines that they're going to do, and they're going to be implanting a subdermal medical records. And so that you can be checked and you'll have to be scanned. You won't be able to go into a grocery store. You won't be able to go to an airport. You won't be able to get gasoline. You won't be able to utilize anything where anybody else is. It's a subdermal. So COVID stands, gosh darn it, for communication. There's an acronym for it. Yes, certification of vaccine identification, which started in 2019. That's what COVID stands for. Corona is the virus. COVID is a certification of vaccination identification, okay, that took place in 2019. This is not a joke. We are in very serious. We need to unite. So what we're doing, we're asking for any volunteers who would be willing to help us compile. It's kind of a tedious job of copy and pasting, but compiling all of the email addresses from Kauai and Molokai. It's not really. It is and all of the medical facilities. So. Because the thing about the email is they can't control that. And so that way we have the opportunity. We need to reach like the 100th monkey. We need to get from cognitive dissonance, which is where we are, to morphic resonance, which is just getting the education and the information to the majority of people. Because I'll tell you what about the Hawaiian people. Once we get all the teachers to watch the Plandemic and look at the actual data, I challenge anybody to come tell me they're going to vaccinate our keiki. That's not going to happen. The only thing that we can do to protect ourselves is to get the Hawaiian people, get them the truth. Because once they know the truth, nobody's going to be coming anywhere to do anything. So if anybody would be willing to help collect, yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for being here and all that you're doing. I work in emergency. I have a NDA. I have a non-disclosure.
Just so you guys know, the question was, she's talking about where does she get her information?
So I have an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement in place, but I've been in emergency management for 19 years. And I went to the FEMA, the Emergency Management Institute, so I have 13 certifications. So I'm not really privy to disclose exactly where I get my information. I just am knowing that because Hawaii is small and the islands are easy to militarize, because there's an indigenous population, this makes this an ideal place to roll out the very first mandatory vaccinations. Yeah.
I heard that the president made it so it was voluntary. Is that true?
Sure, it is voluntary if you want to go to a store, if you want to go get gas, if you want to be in any public places. You know, it's forced consent is what it is. If you want to be able to go anywhere where there's other people. So it's forced consent. If you do not get the COVID-19, then you won't be able to go to a store, you won't be able to go to an airport, you won't be able to get gasoline, you won't be able to go anywhere where other people are. They're going to be checking you to see if you've been vaccinated. It's forced consent. It's forced consent. You really don't have a choice, which is, so we just got to unite. I will tell you that there is very powerful things happening right as we speak in Berlin, in Europe. They are coming up in Canada, in British Columbia, in Spain, Madrid. They are doing powerful things. So if you are on a public platform, please share that. Get up there and get that video footage and share it with people. Let them know that there's countries, people are standing up because we have to. It's an agenda and it's not in our favor. And just if anybody asks or questions you about COVID, ask them to give you one example how the government ever, or the globally ever shows that they care about our well-being. I mean, period.
That's what I said, yeah. All right, last part. Go ahead and stand, and because we all need to kind of move our body a little bit. But just stand. You can hold hands or not. Just follow your heart, whatever you want to do. But I want you just to close your eyes and ground your feet into the earth. And take off your shoes. The earth is underneath this concrete. We're doing a freedom prayer. So go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath. Malama, breathe into this. Okay. Just get into this present moment and find whatever feeling you're having in your body right now. Whatever feeling you're having, and I want you to expand it with your breath. Feel the feeling and expand it with your breath. And let it go down into the earth and let it expand through the limbs of your body. And give yourself full permission right now to be exactly who you are right now in this very moment, without any apology, nothing to fix about you. There's nothing wrong with you. Fully breathe into that. And now notice your heart rate is beating. And notice that your heart rate is syncing with the person on your right and on your left. And notice the feeling of freedom, of peace, and of sovereignty that's in your body. And find that feeling. Find where that lives in your body. Does it live in your heart or your belly? And breathe into it with your next inhale. Expand that feeling of freedom, of peace, of sovereignty until it starts to expand out through your limbs. And it connects with the person on your right and on your left. And that feeling of freedom, of peace, and sovereignty connects with the earth, the Aina. And now feel that feeling, feel that frequency, the vibrational frequency of freedom, of peace, and of sovereignty going out to all of Kona, to all of the Big Island, and touching every single person on the island and finding their freedom and their sovereignty and the peace that they want for themselves and for their children. Combining that with our frequency right now, even if they don't even know it. And sending that frequency out to all the islands and feeling the frequency of peace, of sovereignty, of safety, of love, of full joy, again, of aloha, out to all the islands and now out to the mainland. To the mainland, to China, to Canada, to Australia, to New Zealand, to China, to Europe, to Berlin, to all of the millions of people that are in Berlin right now protesting, and all of the millions of people in London right now who are protesting, and anybody who is protesting or has a desire to be protesting right now, we touch them as well. And now we allow that frequency that is surrounding the planet, that frequency of peace, of sovereignty, of peace, of sovereignty, to joy, to bring it in. And we take a big deep breath. And we expand that feeling out into the planet. And we know that we are safe. And we know that we are free. And so it is. Aloha.